Imagine this, you're a legendary war hero from World War I, now thrust into the fiery crucible of World War II, hitching a ride on a B-17 flying fortress slicing through the endless Pacific like a silver arrow. The engines thrum with that deep, bone-rattling roar of cyclones at full tilt, the horizon unfurls forever in a seamless azure veil, until the fuel gauges wink out like dying stars, needles pinned to zero. Your plane plummets, splashing into the sea like a meteorite cast from the heavens, erupting in geysers of froth that drenched the salt air. You're adrift on a flimsy yellow life raft, its rubber sides slapping the waves, no land in sight, just an infinite blue maw, with 7 other souls crammed in a tangle of limbs and fear-soaked uniforms. Sharks prowl below, their dorsal fins carving lazy arcs through the turquoise depths like living sickles, eyes fixed on the blood scent of vulnerability. The equatorial sun blisters overhead, a white-hot forge turning exposed skin to cracked leather, sweat evaporating before it beads. And your provisions? A pittance, rations and water for maybe a week, if luck holds the weevils at bay. This isn't some celluloid fantasy spun in a Burbank studio, it's the raw, pulse-pounding true story of Eddie Rickenbacker and his crew, a saga of unyielding grit, unshakable faith, and raw human will that transmuted inevitable doom into a miracle etched against the odds. Strap in tight, because over the next 18 minutes, we're plunging headlong into 24 days of infernal survival that would shatter the resolve of steel, unearthing the overlooked fragments, the clandestine code of crew banter that warded off despair, the improvised shark-slaying frenzy under a blood moon, the ethereal gull that perched like a seraph on Eddie's brow, and the intercepted enemy whispers that summoned their saviors. If tales of indomitable spirit ignite your core, smash that like button right now, ring the bell for notifications, and subscribe for a vault of untold World War II odysseys. Let's shove off into the void, where heroes are hammered. Eddie Rickenbacker wasn't just any passenger on that fated flight, he was a colossus of American audacity, a man who'd stared down death so often it nodded back like an old sparring partner. Born on October 8, 1890, in the gritty ironworks district of Columbus, Ohio, to Swiss-German immigrant parents, his father a day laborer felled by a railcar at 40, leaving young Eddie to quit school at 13 and claw his way up from lathe operator in a carriage shop, he embodied the era's restless forge. By 17, he'd traded wrenches for wheels, hurtling around sun-baked board tracks in Indianapolis 500 qualifiers, dodging fiery wrecks and mingling with titans like Barney Oldfield, the speed king who'd once clocked 131 miles per hour. Eddie's own crashes, barrel rolls into hay bales, chassis splintering like matchwood, only honed his edge, but it was the siren call of the skies that seized him fully in 1917. Volunteering for the nascent U.S. Air Service, he shipped to France with the 94th Aero Squadron, the hat-in-the-ring Eagles whose insignia mocked the Kaiser's crown. At the stick of a nimble Nieuport 28, then SPAD 13 Scouts, he tallied 26 confirmed aerial victories, Fokkers spiraling earthward in flaming tumbles, while evading his own tally of near misses, wheels clipped by Archie Flack, mid-air stalls over the Argonne. Honors rained down, the Medal of Honor pinned by Pershing himself, the Distinguished Service Cross for downing a 2-seater over Billy Mitchell's head, and 7 Oakleaf Distinguished Flying Crosses. He flew, topless, sans goggles half the time, his broad-brimmed Stetson clamped on the combing like a dare to gravity, grinning through the slipstream's howl. By 1942, at 52, Eddie was weathered, hair silvered like contrails, frame lean from chain-smoking Camels and black coffee, but his fire undimmed, a dynamo in pinstripes. As special representative to Secretary of War Henry Stimson, he'd crisscrossed the Pacific since April, a one-man booster rocket, jawing with GIs on Espiritu Santo's coral airstrips, auditing B-17 maintenance at Henderson Field amid zero strafes, his speeches, "Lads, this scrap's for the folks back home, don't give an inch," sparking cheers that drowned out the jungle drums. He'd already cheated the Reaper once that spring, April 25, AB-25 Mitchell's landing gear snagged at Atlanta's Candler Field, cartwheeling the bomber into a fireball that charred the tarmac. Eddie clambered out singed, collar askew, quipping to rescuers, "I guess I'm too mean to kill, try harder next time." But the Pacific? It hungered deeper. On October 21, 1942, a Wednesday etched in balmy Hawaiian haze, Eddie boarded the veteran B-17 debarque, tail number 40 to 3094, at sun-scorched Hickam Field, Pearl Harbor's ghost still lingering in the bomb craters. Nicknamed for a pilot's barbecue jest, the Fortress was no showroom queen, 3,000 hours on the clocks, armor plates scarred from Guadalcanal runs, bomb bays retrofitted for passenger benches. Destination: Henderson Field on Guadalcanal, the malarial meat grinder where the 1st Marine Division, down to 8,000 from malaria and mortars, held the line against 20,000 Imperial Japanese in the slot's cauldron. Crew manifest: the unflappable pilot, Captain William R. Cherry, 28, a lanky Kansan with a poker face forged in B-17 quals, his co-pilot, Lieutenant James W. Bush, 25, the Texan firebrand with a navigator's sixth sense, Ensign John M. DeAngelis, 24, the bespectacled navigator from Brooklyn's tenements, fresh from Annapolis with star charts in his blood, Private James C. Adamson, 21, the wiry radio gunner from upstate New York, fingers nimble on Morse keys, SGTS, Alex N. Seavalls, 28, the Pennsylvania powerhouse gunner with a bride's photo tucked in his Mae West, and Richard N. Lovett, 23, the sharpshooting Texan whose drawl masked a poet's soul, plus Private John F. Bartek, 22, the freckled Indiana farm boy and mechanic hitching a ride on a whim, tools rattling in his kit. 8 men, a microcosm of the arsenal of democracy, lifting off into a sky heavy with cumulus, props chewing the humid air as Oahu's palms blurred below. What could go wrong in Paradise's shadow? The hop south commenced deceptively serene, a 2,600-mile gauntlet over atolls like emerald stepping stones, Wake's ruins a grim waypoint, and swells that glittered like hammered platinum under the tropic blaze. Banter crackled over the intercom, Cherry plotting vectors on his E-6B whiz wheel, Bush nursing the yokes against thermals that bucked like broncos, Adamson tapping out weather pings to Noumea. But insidious foes mounted, headwinds from a rogue high-pressure cell over the dateline, clocked at 40 knots where forecasters promised 15, battering the airframe like Atlantic gales and devouring avgas at 1,200 gallons an hour, double the norm. The Fortress's bellies, swollen with 2,700 gallons of 100-octane, lightened perilously, gauges, those brass harbingers, trembled toward Cherry's voice steadied the cockpit, "Easy now, boys, Easter Islands are ace, but she's 500 miles shy." No dice, the Chilean speck lay athwart trade winds, unreachable without wings of angels. By 1400 hours, with the sun a zenithal anvil, the port engines hacked like consumptives, starboard pair faltering in sympathy. Fuel starvation, ditch stations. Cherry's command sliced the din, a surgeon's scalpel. Eddie, wedged in the radio nook amid sparking consoles and the ozone tang of arcing panels, braced as the B-17 wallowed earthward, altimeter spinning backward in a blur. Waves reared like cobalt leviathans, troughs yawning black. At 4:30 p.m. sharp, logbooks would confirm, Barquet kissed the sea, first impact a thunderclap amidships, fuselage accordioning with a shriek of rivets, second, a rending sheer as starboard wing snagged a crest, cartwheeling foam, third, the tail somersaulting in a maelstrom that vomited gear, seats, charts, a stray boot, into the drink. Pandemonium reigned, brine gushed through seams like a breached hull, knee-deep in seconds, the cabin a tilting tomb of flailing shadows. Rafts. Cut 'em loose. Bush yelled, slashing lanyards with a K-bar as the deck canted 45 degrees. The 3 Type A, 3 rafts, 8-man beasts of kapok-filled rubber, inflated with CO2 hisses, bobbing free as the Fortress nosed under, bubbles roiling her grave. Eddie, dazed by a bulkhead's glancing kiss that split his brow, surfaced sputtering, nails gouging the raft's lifeline, blood mingling with saltwater in rivulets. In his 1943 memoir Seven Came Through, penned in a Swiss clinic's hush, he evoked the blur: one instant, sky and steel; the next, the Pacific's cold fist, pounding sense from your skull. Seavalls, the rock-steady gunner who'd manned turrets through Rabaul raids, snagged in the plummeting tail, perhaps a jammed hatch, or the sea's jealous tug, vanished without echo, his dog tags and a locket for his Pittsburgh sweetheart claimed by the abyss, the crew's first hollow ache. Seven hauled aboard, gasping like netted cod, Eddie nursing a gash, Bush with a wrenched knee, Cherry methodically tallying heads. They knotted the raft's bout astern with hemp from the survival kit and bootlaces frayed for cordage, a wobbly armada. Salvage yielded treasures from the tide, 4 dented Spam tins, 12 ounces each, grease intact, a 10-pound loaf of hardtack riddled with rice weevils that danced like confetti, 8 quarts of distilled water in a leaky B-1 bag, a very pistol flare gun with 6 12-gauge shells crimson as arterial spray, a Colt M19 11.45 with 6 clips of 8 rounds apiece, bullets greased against brine, a No. 3 fishing kit, hooks, leaders, sinkers filched from the plane's stores, and a Mk4 first aid pouch. With sulfa powder, morphine syrettes, and bandages crisp as fresh snow. No SCR 522 radio, the salt had shorted tubes to slag. No liquid-damped gyrocompass, smashed in the tumble. Just celestial NAV, sun shots via a cracked octant, Polaris peaks at dusk, and the crew's collective hunch. As twilight bled the sky to bruise purple on day 1, October 21st, the flotilla ghosted westward on a 2-knot current, barques flotsam, oil slicks, a bobbing seat cushion, fading astern like a requiem. Reef sharks, 6-footers with hides like wet sandpaper, finned in inquisitive trios, bellies flashing white. "This is the end of the line, gents," Eddie rasped, tasting copper on his tongue, the weight of command settling like lead. But Rickenbacker scripted his own codas. Locking eyes around the circle, haggard masks lit by dying light, he growled low, 2 paths, quit and feed the fish, or scrap like hell. "We're scrapping. Who's with me?" A ragged chorus rose, fists clenched on paddles. The die was cast. What unfurled was a 24-day odyssey of visceral endurance, a Darwinian forge where seconds stretched to eternities, every breath a bargain with entropy. We'll dissect it not as sterile chronology from declassified after-actions, but as the visceral human maelstrom, breath by blistering breath, wave by wounding wave. Envision it, 3 rafts lashed in a scalene triangle, keels kissing in the troughs, yawing like drunks on a dime store swell, the ocean's pulse a lullaby of nausea. No canopy but shirt sails furled on oar-masts, flapping like surrender flags in the 90-degree furnace. Salt sores erupted on ankles and elbows like venomous blooms, raw, suppurating under UV assault, while the glare off the waves birthed headaches like migraines from Hades. Rations? Eddie's iron decree, 1 fluid ounce of tepid water, measured in a Spam lid, and 1 palm-sized hardtack shard per man at reveille, crumbs sifted for weevils that crunched like gravel under molars. His old aviator's sextant precision now doled in drops to stave off the reaper. Nights 1 through 3 wove dread's tapestry, phosphorescent plankton igniting wakes in spectral blues and greens, as if the sea nursed bioluminescent grudges. Far-off booms from the Santa Cruz carrier clash, Enterprise's flight deck a pyre, Hornet's hull listing, rumbling like Thor's mallet, mocking their isolation as dauntless dueled valves in pyrotechnic ballets unseen. Prayer became ballast, circled in the raft's lee, salt-crusted lips murmuring the Lord's Prayer. Eddie, baptized Lutheran, radicalized by a 1918 vision after a crash, led from Adamson's sodden King James, pages fused but defiant, Job 38 thundered back, "Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth?" Sharks, those abyssal sentinels, patrolled with infernal punctuality, blunt snouts thudding hulls at moonrise, serrated maws assaying probes at limp hands. Counter, Rhythmic pummels on rubber flanks with tinny ration cans and knotted fists, echoes booming like tribal rites, scattering the pack in frothy retreats. Slumber? A farce, limbs entangled in sardine contortions, gunnels awash in briny deluges that chilled to the marrow, reveries plagued by phantom props and wives' faces dissolving in spray. Dawn of day 3 amplified the torment, thirst, that velvet assassin, rasped throats to sandpaper, tongues bloating elephantine, saliva a myth. Fleeting drizzles teased, caught in shirt cups, vanishing in palm heat like desert mirages, while lips split to weeping slits, licked for moisture's ghost. Cherry, the captain's jester with a grin like a crescent moon, lobbed lifelines, spot that palm tree, boys, and it's my ties on me, extra umbrellas for the shark that buys. Guffaws erupted, phlegmy and fierce, a bulwark against the void's whisper, give up. Providence's first salvo stormed in on day 4, October 25th, a anvil-headed cumulonimbus from the ITCZ, gravid with fury, unloosing a monsoon that sheeted the rafts in silver rods. Ecstasy erupted, mouths tilted to the torrent like beggars to manna, shirts and Mae Wests unfurled as gutters funneling nectar till the bee-bag sloshed full to bursting, a 20-quart bounty that quenched fires in bellies long enough for song snatches of God Bless America. Elation soured swift, however, Bartek, the greenhorn with calluses from tractor seats and eyes wide as harvest moons, in a twitch of seabird fever, dry-fired the .45 at a skimming frigate bird, crack echoing like doom, plumage exploding in a feather blizzard, one shell irrecoverably spent. Eddie's rebuke lashed like a cat o' nine, Johnny, that's not pop guns and pigeons, that's our bridge to tomorrow. But the elder's heart softened at the boy's blanch, the kill, plump, 2 pounds of tropic bird, yielded a nocturnal banquet, viscera slurped metallic warm as chaser to the broiled breast, parceled with a father's equity, bones simmered for gluey stock that glued ribs anew. By Vesper 5, fevers kindled in the frail, Adamson shivering catarrh, D'Angelis glasses fogged with ague, chills chasing diurnal bakes like fever's carousel. Salt ulcers burgeoned to gangrenous craters, assailed by no-see-ums and kelp flies, staunched with iodine's hellfire kiss that wrung oaths in 4 languages. Bush, the iron skipper who'd nursed the yoke through the ditching's gale, cracked covertly, siphoning his own urea in thirst's delirium, abdomen ballooning jaundiced. Eddie spied the subterfuge in dilated pupils, gripped his wrist mid-sip, Jim, that's poison, not punch, and we're brothers in this bilge, not solo sailors. The mantra echoed, a covenant sealed in stairs. Angling evolved to sacrament, rigs of monofilament from antenna wire, barbs from safety pin forges, baits of spam rind or gull guts trailed astern. Strikes jolted like lightning, triggerfish bulling with mosaic flanks, bonito knifing in azure streaks, yanked over gunnels in silvered heaves, scaled on thighs with bayonets, filleted raw and ruddy, devoured with the zeal of apostles at the loaves, innards for chum to summon more. Eddie, channeling sane barge lore from 18, fashioned a lug sail from D'Angelis' flight jacket, guide to a spar paddle, harnessing zephyrs for 80 to 100-mile daily vectors, meridian sun for latitude, southern cross azimuths for longitude's guess, nudging them equatorward on the equatorial countercurrent. Day 8's dagger twisted deepest, October 28th, a formation of 6 B-25s, likely from Major General Millard's 5th Bomb Group out of Espiritu, prowled low, perhaps 500 feet, props droning Salvation's hymn, hunting sub-shadows in the glare. Flares lanced upward in frantic scarlet arcs, whump, streak, sizzle, 6 patrimonies expended in vapor trails that curled unanswered, the Mitchells banking oblivious into the haze, rafts mere confetti in the checkerboard sea. Despair crashed heavier than any comber, jaws clenched on silence's brink. That gloaming, plankton's fairy lights waltzing, Eddie knelt amid the huddle, voice fracturing the hush, Lord, if you're tuned in from that endless blue yonder, sling us a sign, one spark to fan this guttering flame. Aurora Australis? No. Dawn's roseate hush birthed it, a herring gull, migrant from God knows where, winged and bold, alighting square on Eddie's pate, talons gentle, beak cocked in avian query. Gasps rippled, it was plucked in hushed rite, 1.5 pounds of feathered benediction roasted over sun-baked tins, apportioned with grace, a foretaste that they drifted not unheeded. By day 10's cusp, November 1st, insanity's mistral infiltrated, coiling psyches in hallucinatory snares, the cerulean expanse morphing to a tormentor's palate. Phantoms jeered, illusory atolls with coconut spires and surf-whitened strands materializing at Padlink's zenith, evaporating to refractive tricks as oars bit brine, bequeathing hollows deeper than thirst. Stores ebbed to parsimony, water sips rationed to eyedroppers, hardtack reduced to dusting sifted through teeth, guts a perpetual clench of vacuum. Adamson, the code tapper whose fingers once danced QSLs to Hawaii, incised drift marks on his oar shaft with a nail file, 15 erratic gashes by All Saints' Vigil, cresting 20 under Scorpio's glare, each incision a rebel's graffiti on fate's wall. Eddie shed 40 pounds, his 160 frame whittled to 120, a spectral silhouette, jowls sagging, yet optic fire undimmed, cobalt drills that marshaled mutiny from malaise. Camaraderie crystallized in respites, tales traded like contraband smokes, Eddie unspooling 17 yarns, the rat that ate the cheese, his spad tangling up falls in Verdun's murk, Cordite's piquancy and the whoop of victory rolls, DeAngelis unburdening Coney Island summers, his roses raven tresses and perfumed billets douched in reverie, Lovette crooning doggerel of Lone Star sunsets, Bartek mimicking silo dances to phantom fiddles. Circa day 15, November 5th, beneath a stellar quilt where Southern Cross wheeled like a jeweled astrolabe and Magellanic clouds smudged the pole, Eddie unfurled a homily honed raw, faith ain't some woolly leap, it's the hawser you grip when the hawsepipe's iced and the gale shears your stays. It hauls you topside, bleeding but breathing. No pulpit thunder, just raft wisdom, alchemized in exposure's alembic, eliciting murmurs from Bartek the agnostic, nods from Bush the stoic, glue for fishers. Sharks, those abyssal familiars, amassed to wolf packs at equinox tides, a dozen dorsals patrolling like pickets. Day 12's melee, October 30th, under a harvest moon's carmine stain, Lovette and Bartek, feral as castaways in Defoe, wetted an ash paddle to stiletto keenness, lunging as a hammerhead, 8 feet of thrashing sinew, ma agape in ivory triangles, breached prow close. The thrust pierced gill slit, haul ensued in sanguine frenzy, beast flopping the deck in bilge, eviscerated for troves, liver lobes quivering mahogany, cartilaginous fins stewed to aspic that congealed on tongues like dubious ambrosia, a 50-pound windfall that bloated bellies for days. Precip fell fitful post-deluge, plops presaging gully washers that drummed rubber like Morse for mercy, yet desiccation's talons raked deeper, birthing deliria, Lovette, the drawling bard, raving of root beer floats beaded in frost, palms cupping vapor mugs till Eddie cuffed him sharp across the stubble, then trickled his allotment from a shell valve, rich, that siren singing, swallow this, and sing with us instead. Fraternity, smelted in that cauldron of capsize and cramp, emerged as their unplumbed draft, each frailty buttressed by the phalanx, cherry-binding bushes spraying with salvaged silk, DeAngelis charting phantom fixes to anchor the lost. Day 21 dawned, November 11th, armistice's echo, fate's wry footnote, with ember-hope guttering, chassis racked by rheumatism's vice, cerebra unraveled to filament whispers. Epidermis draped like deflated sails on scaffolds planed by privation, lesions septic under arthropod legions, the brines reek laced with suppuration's sweet rot. Then, zenithal reprieve, a PBY, 5 Black Cat, consolidated its amphibious sleuth from VP, 23 Squadron off Funafuti's Lagoon, piloted by Lieutenant William P. Tex Birch on grid search from a ultra-decrypt Bonanza, crested a rogue comber at 0830 and fixated on their jaundiced triangle, coordinates 4 degrees south, 170 degrees east, 450 miles WSW of Nauru's phosphate spires. Official annals credit Serendipity's sweep, Survivor Confidences and Ultra Redactions, Unsealed 97, Unveil the Ploy, Station HYPO's cryptanalysts, laboring in Pearl's humid basements over Purple Machine intercepts, cracked Tokyo's braggadocio, Yankee heavy bird splashed, crew shark bait, triangulating the splash zone, cueing the Catalinas like hounds to spoor. Irrelevant the vector, the beast stooped in a gull's glide, Liberty engines bellowing hosannas, port wing dipping in semaphore as the castaways flailed shirts like semaphores, bellows rasping, here. God damn it, here, from lungs of ash. Birch greased a stick run at 50 feet, salt spray sheeting the canopy, then lobbed 5 yellow smoke floats, serpents uncoiling on the blue, answered by a last flare's vermilion cough. Evacuation serialized by the PBY's Bay constraints, Bush and Cherry winched first via Stokes litter, clasped in enfeebled exultation, the skippers, we made it, Bill, lost to prop wash, Adamson and DeAngelis next, the navigator Specs Askew, tears carving tracks in grime as the rafts shrank to toys, Lovett and Bartek hoisted tandem, the youth's whoop piercing the din, Ma's cookin' tonight. Eddie, caboose with an ankle pulverized days prior by a beam seas broach, fibula snapped like kindling, endured the bosun's chair's sway, agony lancing as calloused paws boosted him into the alclad gut, collapsing amid blistered decks and the reek of 100 octane. Boys, he croaked, propped on a bulkhead as the bay doors groaned shut, we licked the bastard odds, now point her stateside. Traverse, 2,400 nautical miles adrift, a odyssey on the south equatorial gyre. Sea vols void the sole levee. 7 came through, mauled, but marching. Stateside, Eddie ignited a media maelstrom, his scarecrow silhouette, sun-leathered, 40 pounds lighter, emblazoned from the Honolulu Star Bulletins, ACE floated 24 days, splashed to life centerfold spread. Tethered at Tripler General, glucose rigs humming, he fielded press packs with raconteur's flair, demurring glory. Wasn't me, fellas, it was the good Lord slinging seabirds and the Navy's long arm, plus 7 aces tougher than Krupp's steel. FDR hosted a Pantheon rite at the White House, October 43, medals cascading, Distinguished Service Medal for Eddie, Air Medals for the Raft Riders, amid a thicket of newsreel cliques, Eddie bantering, Mr. President, I'll stick to Cadillac's next jaunt, fewer leaks. His Bond tour scorched the homeland, Liberty ship christenings in Philly, warplant pep talks in Detroit's foundries, that ocean's big, but our fight's bigger, give hell for sea vols. Crowds 50,000 strong, his timbre a tonic when torch landings teetered and Stalingrad snows bled red. One zinger skewered the Führer, wire that Chaplin knockoff I bobbed longer than his wolf packs submerge, and surfaced meaner. Eddie's arced post-pluck, helming Eastern Airlines to post-war hegemony, DC-3s to constellations, till the 1946 hat-trick Inferno, a DC, for Skymaster, cartwheeling at LaGuardia, 20 souls lost but Eddie extricating third-degree singed, lightning's got a grudge, I'll buy it a beer. He bowed out a Pantheon, Zurich's July 23, 1973 claiming him at 94, lockjaw from a 70s tick, but spirit unbowed, interred at Columbus Green Lawn amid flyovers. The septet? Diaspora with sinews intact, Cherry to Kansas wheatfields, penning aviatrix memoirs, Bush to oil rigs in the Gulf, captaining clippers, DeAngelis to Pan Am cockpits, retiring with Rosa at last, Adamson to radio repair in Rochester, Lovett to VA counseling, verses in Stars and Stripes, Bartek to John Deere assembly, grandkids on his knee. Lifelong, they convened, 50s VFW bashes in Reno, 80s cruises off Maui, toasting the Rickenbacker raft, with Schlitz and sea shanties, Seavol's chair ever empty, a chalice of remembrance. Their chronicle endures as shibboleth for our squalls, amid annihilation's gale, commands no chevron, it's the seated sip, the shared vigil. Creed's no talisman, it's the staysail in the squall, taught against the tear. And probabilities? Mere actuarial fog till you dispel with brawn, ballad, and the bull-headed bet on dawn. What's your Pacific, viewer? A riptide of regret, a doldrum of doubt where horizons mock. Spill it in the comments, we'll lash rafts of resilience, yarn by yarn. If this epic etched your marrow, pulverize like, propel it to a timeline trekker pal, subscribe bell rung for the trove of eclipsed valor. Teaser, the Ghost Army's canvas caper, rubber rhinos and sonic spookery that bamboozled the blitzkrieg. Till then, trim your sheets against the trades. This is WW2 Historical, logging off from history's heaving deck.